Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast, live from Boombozz Pizza Taphouse. I'm here with producer JT. I'm your host, Easton, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network, and we are so excited to kick off our Thursday night live series here in Spring Hill at Boombozz Pizza. JT, how are you?
I'm great. This is definitely a change of scenery that we've got here, but I'm super excited. We have some people here watching along with us as well. Grabbing a nice cold drink, relaxing right before the kickoff of the NFL season, which starts in about an hour. So super exciting.
Yeah, about an hour away from the Chiefs and the Lions kicking off. And before then, we're going to talk all things Titans and Saints before they get their seasons underway this weekend in New Orleans. But first, got to tell you about our wonderful sponsor here, Boombozz Pizza. 3 locations in the Middle Tennessee area. They've got the Spring Hill location, which is where we are located, as well as a East Nashville and Murfreesboro location that are all right here in the heart of Middle Tennessee. But if you're from out of town, Kentucky and Indiana, both of those states have locations for Boombozz as well. So do not miss out on Boombozz wherever you are at. If you're thinking you've never heard of this place, neither had we until they reached out to us. But we were super stoked to come and find out about all of the fantastic offerings they have at Boombozz. They are not your typical pizza sports bar. Get this, JT, they're the only pizza company in the world to have won Best Pizza in America twice in the International Pizza Championships. Other awards to their name, International Pizza Expo in Las Vegas. They won winner, Best Vegetarian Pizza, winner of Best Gourmet Pizza, winner of Best International Pizza, and winner of Best Non-Traditional Pizza. The place truly has it all. Great pizza from plain pepperoni to the most unique and delicious gourmet pizzas you've ever tried. Delicious wings and apps. A couple dozen beers on tap that we're going to try later tonight. Can't wait to put down a couple cold ones while we're watching Thursday Night Football, as well as the fact that it is a sports bar. So we've got TVs all over the place. In this room alone, I count 6 televisions for us to watch the game. I'm sure it will be on all of them tonight. So
every angle,
all the angles
of Noah Gray becoming the next Travis Kelce tonight. So I'm super excited about that. But like you said, we only, I'd like to think that our show only kind of associates with winners, like you said.
Only winners.
Only winners. So
right.
Glad that this
Boombozz
has won a bunch of times for their best pizzas. So like we're only here with winners.
Well, and they've won our pizza palates because they are fantastic at what they do, and that is making pizza and showing live sports, and that's what we're here to do. So if you are in the Middle Tennessee area, come on down to Boombozz Pizza any Thursday night for Thursday Night Football all season long. If you didn't make it tonight, you've got 17 more opportunities to come and join us this season. We'll be hanging out every single week after our show, which goes right before Thursday Night Football, obviously. We'll be hanging out to watch Thursday Night Football with whoever comes through, whoever shows up. So we would love to hang out with you, grab you a drink, and enjoy the game alongside you. All right, JT. A couple of things real quick before we dive into the Titans and the warm-up today, where you and I are going to go through our 2023 NFL season predictions. We're going to talk about division winners. We're going to talk about playoff predictions and the Super Bowl predictions from you and I, just to get it out on the record. You know, this is the time of year you got to put it out there. You're almost certainly going to be wrong on a lot of things, but the fun of it is just to see if your lottery ticket cashes and to see how well we can predict what these teams are going to do this season. Before that, if you're not subscribed to Broadway Sports Media on YouTube, please go over and do that. Would help us a lot. Would love to build up that following on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. And if you're not watching this live stream on the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page, head on over to the YouTube live stream that we have on Broadway Sports Media's page of this show and join the comments over there like our buddy Pretty Boy Lipschitz and Juke Summit have already done. Appreciate you guys being with us today. All right, JT, all that fluff out of the way. Let's get into the warm-up. And today's warm-up is our 2023 NFL predictions. Would you like to start us off? I want you to run down your 7 playoff teams from each conference. And I will do the same, and then we'll talk about the playoffs. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. So we can get into this. So I did this morning, and oh boy. Like, I feel like we probably say this every single year, right?
It's tough.
But, like, this is the year now where I feel like there's so much parity in the NFL and just everybody's going to be so close and then it's going to end up being totally wrong. But truly, I was like, there's a lot of good teams out there this season. Like, super excited to watch some football, especially tonight, between a Lions team that like also has some very high aspirations. this season. So it was hard for me to kind of pick the teams, but I'll start off with the NFC.
Okay.
Here.
Let's hear it.
NFC, and then
let's do that. I mean, everybody can agree the NFC is the weaker conference.
Yes.
It's probably a tad easier to pick. I know in the AFC, in the NFC, I didn't feel like I left out any two deserving teams that I really want to see them in the playoffs. In the AFC, I left out at least 3 or 4 that I think absolutely are probably going to prove me wrong and somehow get into the playoffs. But no matter how you slice it this year, there are going to be at least 3 teams that could definitely finish in DVOA, top 5 on offense and defense, that are just not going to make the playoffs. And it's going to be very frustrating for those fan bases, but it's the way that it works. The AFC is just so stacked. So yeah, give me your NFC rundown.
Yeah. So my NFC rundown right here. So first overall seed, even though on the Hot Read podcast Take Purge, I had them not making the playoffs. I've come full circle because of, once again, that was during the Take Purge.
There's a Take Purge, a totally different situation. You don't
situation.
believe that unless you're right, in which case you can go back and point to you said it.
Exactly.
Right. We love to double standards so you never lose is the idea.
Exactly. So I have the Eagles being the first overall seed in the NFC with a 12-5 record. Maybe not as exciting as they were last season, but 5 losses this season.
Well, when you're that perfect, you mean just naturally you're due for aggression. That offense, almost certainly not going to be as dynamic. Their defense, for sure, I have more questions about this year than last, but I think it's not all that uncommon for folks to think the Eagles are still the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, so they're my number 1 seed here. And then number 2, I have the Seattle Seahawks going just 10-7.
You know I'm big on the Seahawks this year, so I'm with you.
Yeah, I have them in the 2 spot. I really like them to win the division this year. In my 3 spot, I have the Detroit Lions. Coming out of the
Restore
NFC
the roar, baby.
Yes, as that is now apparently the catchphrase.
You never heard that?
No,
well, it's because the Lions fans have been trying to restore the roar for so long. They've quit. They've given up on restoring the roar. But that goes back. We are finally restoring the roar in the Big D.
We might see it tonight, like Travis Kelce out. I would not.
I hope so. Let's do it tonight. I'm in.
So we'll see, but I have them as my 3, and then of course someone has to win the NFC South this season, and
someone does.
The Atlanta Falcons winning, just scraping by the Saints with a record of 9-8. I'm a little bit higher on Desmond Ridder than I think a lot of other people might be. He definitely is the Falcons quarterback that they believe in right now. And with Bijan Robinson,
the operative word,
Drake London, Kyle Pitts, I think they have some dynamic weapons. So I'm going to go with them as my 4, and then we get to the wild card teams where, I'm kind of tiptoeing the line of my Take Purge, but I'm still going to put 2 more NFC East teams in on the wild card.
Okay.
Here. I have
3 of 4. I'd say that qualifies. 4 of 4's never been done.
Yes.
So
I have the Cowboys and Giants both making it at 10-7. I think those teams are also pretty even as we get some thumbs up from the crowd here. I think that's a good take. Thank you for the positive affirmation there in my takes. And then finally, I think there is some merit to what you said in your take, that I don't think the 49ers are the end-all, be-all this season. And I have them just barely getting into the playoffs at 9-8. I'm not sold on Brock Purdy this season, but yeah, so that's my 7 right there.
Okay, so my NFC looks similar in the division winners, but then we change things up with the wild card. So I've got the Eagles winning the division, 13-4, best record in football. And then the Seahawks behind them at 12-5. I think the Seahawks are going to have a really, really strong year. If you look at their roster last year, that was a surprise playoff team. It's the exact same roster. They didn't lose any valuable pieces. They only added to a defense that was pretty shaky that I think they shored up pretty nicely in the offseason. So I think they'll have a very good year. Lions in the 3 seed at 10-7, again, restoring the roar, winning the NFC North, and the Falcons winning that South division at 10-7 as well. My wild cards, I think the Cowboys are the rare 2 wins above 4th place wild card team where you're like, why are they a wild? Oh, it's right, because in their division was just so stacked that they got the wild card spot, and 2 teams with worse records than them managed to get in and get a home game in the playoffs. They do not, because they're in a division with the Eagles. So I've got them at 12-5, just losing that division. And then my other 2 wild cards, my 6 and 7 seed, I've got the Saints. As I talked about on the Take Purge, I really do believe this. I think that with both the AFC South and NFC South, something that we realize mid-season a lot of years, but then forget when it comes time for a new season, is that a weaker division is often the strength of that division when it comes to playoff time. When you have to play worst opponents all year, you're going to win more games than the teams that have to play the harder teams. Like, it's pretty simple math. And because of that, I think that there's going to be 2 playoff teams from the NFC South. I think the Saints get in at 9-8. Again, the weaker of the two conferences rather. So I think 9 wins puts you in contention to get into the playoffs in the NFC. 9-8, the Saints get in, and then the Giants at 9-8 also sneak in. I've got the 49ers missing out on the playoffs at 9-8, losing tiebreakers, along with the Packers. I have just on the outside looking in, and the Vikings at 8-9 regress. No more magic for them and their EPA. Just every single game, somehow every close game going their way, it's going to regress this year. So I've got those teams on the outside.
As Juke Summit says in the comments, no Viking is an L. I don't know if it's exactly an L. I don't think
shock either of us if the Vikings got into the playoffs.
No, it wouldn't shock me, but it also wouldn't shock me either if they totally regress. I mean, they lost a lot of pieces on that defense. Kirk Cousins is going to have another good year, as he also says, Viking Super Bowl, here we come. We can tell who that guy roots for there. But
yeah.
I mean, that kind of division is really up in the air. I just think the Lions are just put together like a more solid team top to bottom than the Vikings are right now. And in that division, your divisional wins matter so much more than just playing the rest of the conference. And it's just like, it's so close every single year with them.
Sure.
So like, I think it truly is a toss up for me.
Let's look at the AFC.
Yeah, let's look at the AFC.
Okay,
now.
so what do you got?
So for the AFC here, another tough one, but I have
tough one.
I have the Bills as the number 1 seed this season. I'm not really buying into this Bills kind of not being good narrative.
They're post-type sleepers.
Yes,
they're post-type
really
sleepers.
Last year was the year for them. As
in terms of pressure,
yes.
Right? And that oftentimes causes a team to underperform in the eyes of the media because you crumple under that pressure. You see that a lot more on, I think the Bengals are more that team this year that people have significant expectations for. The Bills have kind of gone by the wayside, and I'd imagine that's kind of the way that they'd prefer it up there in Buffalo. I'm sure they're not too displeased with the lack of attention they've gotten so far this year.
And mostly probably because the rest of their division is much of the same this year.
Sure.
So much hype that it's now no longer the Bills and just a bunch of middling teams. It is now 3 really good teams with a viable chance to make a Super Bowl run.
And the Patriots.
And the
Patriots.
As I said on here, I do have the Patriots going 5-12. I did full divisions there. I don't really like what's going on.
No, I think that they're a contender for a top 5 pick.
I would agree. So at my 2, I have the Chargers winning the AFC West this season.
Okay.
I think.
Whoa, wait. Oh, I was assuming you. So you have them beating out the Chiefs.
I do.
Okay.
I do, because obviously this Chris Jones situation is.
We'd all love for you to be right, and we all think that you're wrong. Is what you understand. That's the case.
I don't love the Chris Jones situation. With outside of Chris Jones, like their secondary is really nice. I like their secondary. I think their front 7 could be a little better without Chris Jones. It's
about to say what? There you go. It definitely is not as
Chris
good.
Jones, and then like we're gonna maybe see tonight. This team is kind of relying too much on Travis Kelce to kind of carry the load, I think. And
we'll see.
The Chiefs have kind of built their kind of team around just give it to Travis Kelce and we'll not worry about it. Well, what happens when you do not have Travis Kelce?
Well, you still have the most talented quarterback in the history of the sport wearing a red jersey. So that accounts for part of it, I think.
So I like what the Chargers are doing. I think fully healthy.
You know what I don't like? They still employ Brandon Staley. So as long as they employ Brandon Staley, I'm out. Personally, I'm out.
So maybe that is a hot take, but I'm going with them at 2. At the 3, I have the Bengals coming out of that bloodbath of a division, taking the 3rd seed in the AFC. And then the 4th, may not like this, but I have the Jaguars still just beating out the Titans in the AFC South.
I see by 1 game here, 10-7, 9-8.
9-8. And in this division, very doable. Like this could totally be swapped, but
sure.
That's just kind of the feeling I have right now. Going on to my wild card teams here, I have the Chiefs still making it at 10-7 at the 5th seed. I have the Jets as the 6th seed at 10-7. And then I have the Steelers as the last seed. The Titans. I do not currently have the Titans making the playoffs, mostly because I think there are
total villain of the show now. Total villain.
But there's so many teams that are going to be 9-8, 10-7. It's going to be based on head-to-head matchups for these tiebreakers.
Sure.
And I think it's just the way it falls. is for right now. Like if they do not win the division, I don't see a path to the playoffs for them because it is so stacked. But we'll see.
Yeah. All right. I'll give my AFC, and we'll speed it up here because we are spending half the show on the warm up. So I've got the Bills winning the conference as well. Echo a lot of the things that you said. I think that this is their year to be a post-hype sleeper. I think that at the end of last year, a lot of things happened to them. People forget, like, they had to go play in Detroit twice and trudge through a snowstorm that like decimated their city. And then they had a teammate who they thought literally died in front of them on the field. They had a canceled game. And then all of this, like, there was a lot that happened to them emotionally, mentally at the end of last season that I think is unlikely to happen again. And is something that probably took much more a toll on that team. In that playoff loss to the Bengals, they looked like they were kind of throwing these kind of zombies out there. They looked like they were ready to be done with the season. So I've got them at 12-5 winning division, edging out the Chiefs, the 2 seed at 12-5. I think that is going to continue to be the case. They'll be at the top of the AFC until further notice. Would love to be wrong. The Bengals, the 3 seed, winning that division at 11-6. Then I've got the Titans winning the AFC South at 10-7, your 4 seed. So I've got the Dolphins as your 5 seed at 11-5. I got a lot of belief in the Dolphins if, and this if is the Spider-Man meme holding back the bus, like very big if Tua Tagovailoa can stay healthy, if he can avoid, I think one concussion this year may knock him out of the season, may knock him out of football entirely. So a big if there. But if he stays healthy, I love what they're doing. Mike McDaniel down there has decided that America is based on hot, nasty, bad speed. Like we love the speed. It's all about the speed. And that is what they're going to do on offense and on defense. I love their team speed all around. I think they're easily the fastest team in the league. Then I've got the Jaguars at the 6 seed. Again, I think both of the top teams in both AFC and NFC South divisions make the playoffs because of the weakness of their schedule. So I've got the Jaguars at 10-7, tying with the Titans in record, the Titans winning the tiebreaker there. And then the Steelers at 10-7, getting that 7 seed, which leaves out the Jets and the Chargers both at 10-7, and the Ravens at 9-8, all 3 of which I would not be surprised even a little bit to see replaced in here somewhere. I think all 10 of these teams are bona fide playoff contenders this season, so it wouldn't shock me at all. Let's look briefly at the playoffs, JT. Let's just run down what you have the playoffs looking like.
Yeah, so I can
just run it. Let's run it down real quick. We can talk about the Super Bowl primarily.
Yeah, we don't have to go matchup by matchup, but coming out of the NFC Championship game, I do have the Eagles facing the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
And the Eagles making it to back-to-back Super Bowls here, trying to claim that title that they did not get last year. Mm-hmm. And then out of the AFC, I have the Bengals playing I believe the Bengals and the Bills doing another rematch in which I have the Bengals once again winning, which puts me at a Bengals-Eagles Super Bowl.
And who wins?
The Bengals.
No, of course the Bengals fan thinks the Bengals are winning the Super Bowl. Okay.
To be fair, though.
You know who I don't have winning the Super Bowl?
Who do you not
the
have?
Titans.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of feel validated, though, because I went online and, Theo Ash has the same prediction as me, and I'm like, okay,
TikTok superstar,
fellow ball
right?
Knowers.
Not to disparage Theo. That was convenient. I do love Theo. So my AFC, I have it coming down to the Bengals and the Bills as well. I've got the Bills winning that game though and getting to the Super Bowl for the first time since they lost 4 in a row, if I'm not mistaken. And then on the NFC side of the bracket, I've got it looking like the Seahawks and the Eagles. Wow, we had the identical ones. Yep. That is unfortunate. We didn't
probably not good news for those.
No, it's probably going to be 4 completely different teams. But yeah, I have the Seahawks and the Eagles, and I have the Eagles winning that. So I have Eagles, Bills. You had Bengals, Eagles. I have the Bills winning that Super Bowl though. I think they finally get one, first time in their franchise history. They go 1-5 in Super Bowls, if I'm not mistaken. They finally get their Lombardi Trophy as post-hype sleepers. So, yeah, that is our season predictions that we spent 20 minutes on that probably nobody cared about, but they're out there. So enjoy those. Let's talk about the Titans now. We've buried the lead appropriately. The Titans are playing a game. That's what people are here to listen to us talk about. So we've got a number of things to discuss with this Titans and Saints preview before we then get to some news with producer JT, and then the return of the best bet gauntlet, which we'll need to leave plenty of time for. Week 1, an exciting time to bet, not a fun time to bet because the lines are so incredibly sharp, but we got to do it. Just try to survive and get to week 2, and then it is coasting from there, and we're going to make a lot of money. Let's talk Titans Saints, though. Some stats and info, JT, that I want to run by the people. I've just got kind of a pot pie of information here that I just want to discuss. Stop me at any time if you find something interesting that you would like to discuss further. But some information about this game, and this is the weirdest preview of the season because again we've kind of been previewing this for a month now. Yes. We'll have more to talk about once we've seen both of these teams. We've got a week under our belt, but for now, some information. Sunday will be 296 days, JT, since the evening of November 17th, 2022, which is when the Titans last won a game. That was the evening of the booze cruise for former Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing, who after the Titans won in very exciting. I mean, I remember that game vividly. They played the Packers on Thursday Night Football, and they win handily. And they come back, and then their entire season falls apart from that moment. We kind of pinpointed that at the end of last year as the last good thing all year that happened to the Titans. And so they're looking to get back on the horse. Almost 300 days is a long time to go without winning a football game. Some history for the Titans is being made this year. They have 24 new players on their 2023 roster, which is the most roster turnover the team has ever had since becoming the Titans. They've got 11 veteran free agents they added to the roster, 6 draft pick rookies that all made the 53-man roster, 5 undrafted free agent rookies that made the cut, 1 player via trade, your kicker Nick Folk, and 1 player via waivers, who they added from the Bears. Kendall Vildor is one of your new DBs. So it's a really brand new team. I mean, 24 new players on a 53-man roster, the biggest roster turnover in 24 years that the Titans have been in Nashville. And so when people talk about how they are expecting the team to do this or expecting the team to do that, and they phrase it in terms of, well, based on, like they reference the history of this team, and it's like, this team, all they do is run the ball. This team, they don't have any tempo to their game. This team, this or that. I get it, and I understand that point of view, but truly this year, above all other years, we do not know what this team's going to look like. And so that's what makes Sunday really, really exciting. Some Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill information. Derek Carr is 1-2 against Mike Vrabel's Titans, or excuse me, 0-2 against Mike Vrabel's Titans. Misread that. So has not had a lot of success against them. Ryan Tannehill and Derek Carr are the 5th and 6th most tenured active NFL quarterbacks in the league, with 143 and 142 career starts apiece, behind only Andy Dalton, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, and of course, Aaron Rodgers. So it's battle of the old men in NFL terms in this game. Derek Carr's, this is probably the most interesting stat that I pulled here. Derek Carr's 4 worst seasons as a pro so far in his career have been the 4 seasons during which he was under a new offensive coordinator, installing a brand new offense, operating a new offense for the first time. And that's according to every efficiency metric that you can think of. CPOE, EPA, they all dictate that his 4 worst years pretty clearly, like it's not really all that close, are when he's having to adjust to a new circumstance. And obviously a new team brings new teammates, plus a new offense, plus a new offensive coordinator, plus a new head coach. So there's a lot that's changed. And I think the Titans drawing the Saints when they did, certainly advantageous. You see new quarterbacks with new teams in the recent past. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers go on to win the Super Bowl, but they start their season, I believe, 7-7 by their Week 14 bye, and then win out the rest of the year. Like they started really, really rough. You look at, I would say Russ and the Broncos, but it never got better. You look at the Colts and their literal revolving door of quarterbacks. The past, 6-7 years now in a row, they've had a new, I think 7 years now. This will be the 7th year. They've had a new starting quarterback on the first day of the season. A lot of those guys have gotten better as they've gone, like the Phillip Rivers, I was going to say presidency. That's not the word I'm looking for. The Phillip administration is the word I was looking for. The Phillip Rivers administration was one that started to look good by the end and was a little too late. But, they got into the playoffs. They won a game. They got them into the postseason. And so that was one that didn't look great to begin. So all of that is to say, I think that drawing this team with this quarterback in particular, who has a history of not performing well under new circumstances, is certainly a benefit for the Titans. And, having to play the Saints anyways, because they drew their division, getting them week 1 it's a good situation for them. Some more numbers here on the skill position side of things. Michael Thomas, slant boy, and DeAndre Hopkins, they are 1 and 2 in the league, first and second for most receptions per game, average per game in week 1 in NFL history. So they average 7.5 and 7.3 receptions per game in week 1s, which is kind of a strange category. But DeAndre Hopkins, this is interesting maybe for bettors. He's had 9 touchdowns in 9 week 1 performances. He's played in week 1 9 times in his career. This is his 9th season, or this is his 10th season, rather. And he's had a touchdown in 9 of them. So maybe an anytime touchdown on DeAndre Hopkins wouldn't be a horrible idea tonight. Maybe throw that leg into the parlay. I know we're probably going to sit down to look at, I mean, week 1, game 1, you got to, after this show, we're going to sit down at the bar, grab a drink, and maybe play some bets on this game before we watch. Yeah. So that's something, let's lock that in for later. That is, by the way, 9 touchdowns in 9 week 1 performances, tied for 6th most in NFL history in that category. So DeAndre Hopkins, a history of being fantastic out of the gate, kind of the anti-Derrick Henry in that way. Yeah. No time to warm up. Maybe starts off a little too hot, but for the beginning of the season, certainly a good thing for him and for the Titans. Derrick Henry, speaking of him, he is 2 touchdowns away from becoming the 7th player in NFL history to amass 8,000 yards and 80 touchdowns in their career, which is a fantastic feat. And just another one of those stats that you hear, and there's countless stats like this for Derrick Henry, and you think, yeah, this guy's probably already a Hall of Famer. Like it feels like if you're the 6th or 5th or 4th or 7th guy in history to do this, that, or the other of important statistical categories, maybe you're one of the best and you deserve to be enshrined in Canton. A couple more, actually just one more stat for you before we talk about the game and some matchups to look at. There are 11 rookies on this active roster, which we've talked about before. But I wanted to kind of pose the question, how many of them get playing time in this game? Because the Titans' record for rookies to play in their first NFL game is 9 in one season. My question is, will all 11 even be active in this game? Almost certainly not with some of these UDFAs they've got on the team. You know, Caleb Murphy, if it weren't for an abdominal injury to Harold Landry this week, I would imagine he was going to be inactive. Now, maybe he gets activated because of that. You've got some other guys, you know, Colton Dowell is kind of, I'd say probably because he's their 5th receiver right now, as long as you don't have Kyle Phillips in the fold and healthy, but he's another guy that may be a candidate to be active one week and not active the next. We'll have to see, but I'd be kind of surprised if that record is broken this week. All right, let's talk matchups, JT. And this is where I'd like to have a discussion with you and hear your opinions on these things. I've split it up between 3 categories: matchups of strength, matchups of weakness for the Titans, that is, and then some matchups that are really the pivotal, most important matchups that are probably going to decide the game or may very well decide the game. So let's start with the matchups of strength for the Titans in this game. The first one is Chris Olave and Christian Fulton. Now, this is maybe a controversial one. Some might say you would prefer Olave over Fulton. At the very least, I'd say it's a pivotal matchup. Maybe it belongs in the pivotal matchup more, but I'm going to argue that it is a matchup of strength for the Titans. While I think Olave may very well be the most talented at this point in their career skill position player on the field wearing either jersey on Sunday, I do think, based on the camp that we've seen, and this is me going the complete opposite of what I said in the Take Purge, based on what we've seen in camp, it wouldn't shock me at all, at least now while he's still healthy. You know, he's game 1. We know he's healthy. Christian Fulton, the way he's played Treylon Burks, the way he's played DeAndre Hopkins in camp, it wouldn't shock me at all if he forces Chris Olave into a pretty quiet week. Now, an important contingency here: the Titans don't travel their cornerbacks. So, like, he'll not be facing Olave exclusively all game. And so Olave versus Roger McCreary, that matchup, very concerning. Olave has got some length that McCreary does not have. He's certainly, I think, just a better athlete in general than McCreary is. That's a matchup that, if I'm the Saints, I'm wanting to exploit as much as possible. And so then you'll almost certainly see a matchup between Christian Fulton and Michael Thomas, which, again, as long as Michael Thomas may be the biggest question mark in this game. He's been absent for 10,000 days now. What was the last time he played significant football? I mean, he played some last season for like 10 seconds and then got hurt again. But the last time he played a full season, I think Drew Brees was still around. I'm pretty sure, like 2021. Yeah. Sure.
definitely going to be more of a target. I think if you see Michael Thomas make an impact in this game, it's going to be in the red zone because he's always been a huge red zone threat.
Big body target makes sense. You can throw it up. Great hands.
He might produce tomorrow.
So yeah, let's talk about him more in a second. Another matchup of strength. Simmons and Tart, the Titans' big uglies up front on defense, going up against this weak New Orleans interior. Their interior offensive line is not the strongest. It's certainly it's hard in comparison talking about another offensive line's interior being weak because the Titans' offensive line is also weak. But like I think it's weakness on weakness here, maybe offensive line to offensive line. But Titans' D line versus Saints O line, certainly strength on weakness. Maybe the largest strength on weakness in the entire game, which, to be fair, is going to be the case in at least 15 of the 17 games the Titans played this year. I think we're going to be a broken record on Thursday. It's talking about how the Titans' defensive line has an advantage over the offensive line that they're facing. That being said, I do think that this interior can be exploited by those two, and to a lesser extent, they're not going to be on the edge as often. But when they go up against the tackles for this Saints team, Trevor Penning is a second-year player who had a pretty up and down rookie season. He was serviceable on the whole, but there were moments for him that were really ugly. And off the field, he's quickly gained a reputation for being a bit of a hothead. So wouldn't shock me at all. I mean, I know the elite trash talkers on the defensive side of the ball are Tier Tart and Jeffrey Simmons. They're going to be trying to get in his head all day long. Wouldn't shock me at all if you could bet on a Trevor Penning personal foul at some point in this game. I would lay the money on that bet. So I think that's going to be a big deal. And then the last matchup of strength here, I think Mike Vrabel going up against Dennis Allen, the head coaches, is something that it's easy to forget. But Dennis Allen, as a head coach, has a losing record by a significant amount. This is his second stint, I believe, as a head coach now with not with New Orleans, but his time now is his second time as a head coach in the league. And where would you rank him amongst the head coaches in the league? I don't have any. I like him as a defensive coordinator. I think he's a good defensive mind who puts together good defenses. That's what he's done a lot of his career. But as a head coach, I think that the gap is kind of the Grand Canyon between him and Mike Vrabel.
I would agree. I would say Mike Vrabel's probably in that upper echelon, maybe top 5 conversation right now. But Dennis Allen is probably somewhere between 20 and 32.
Yeah, bottom
like
10.
Doesn't do anything flashy. Like you're running like. It feels like Dennis Allen for head coaches nowadays is like stuck in the old ways. It's like, I feel like Dennis Allen.
Too much of an old head.
Dennis Allen is like the embodiment of the meme where it says the future is now, old man. And I feel like that's exactly what Dennis Allen is. So yeah, I mean, I would give the nod to Vrabel every single day.
The matchup of weakness that I came up with, and like, to be fair, I only came up with one. If you can think of another on the fly, let me know. But the one that I think is the most obvious and certainly the biggest weakness for the Titans is that Cam Jordan, Chris Hubbard matchup. We don't know for sure that Cam Jordan is going to be primarily going on that right side of the offensive line going up against Titans' current right tackle, Chris Hubbard. But I'm here to tell you he is. Like he's going to be exploiting that all day long. The Saints know that is the weakness of the Titans' offensive line. They know that is the least continuous portion of the offensive line. Very much I mean, this is all new for the offensive line for the Titans, but the newest piece to a new room and the oldest piece to a new room and the worst piece to an old room. A trifecta you never want to complete. Cam Jordan, also old, but he is a timeless. I mean, don't fool yourself into thinking this guy does not still have the juice. Still has the juice. Don't know how he does it, but he does have the juice. And that's going to be something where if he comes away with a similar to the Titans face off against the Arizona Cardinals in week 1 2 years ago when Taylor Lewan allowed 6 sacks. Wouldn't shock me if you had another like 4 or 5 sack performance, all responsibility accredited to Chris Hubbard on that left side, or on that right side rather.
Yeah,
they're gonna have to scheme around it. Like there's no patching the hole. It's scheme around it.
I mean, that's why I think we'll honestly, like when it is 3rd and long, we might see some 12 personnel, like 2 tight ends on the outside of each.
You may see it all downs. Like Trayvon Westgill may just be tied to his hip all game long, and it wouldn't really shock me if we come to the end of the game, we get the reports for playing percentages, and Trayvon Westgill, the Titans' big-bodied tight end, glorified offensive lineman, played like 98% of snaps exclusively on the right side as an inline blocker,
I think
and ran like 4 routes.
It might just be like very frustrating tomorrow, or not tomorrow, on Sunday, when you see kind of these personnel packages that they have to do because of how lopsided of a matchup it is between Chris Hubbard and Cameron Jordan.
Well, and get used to it, because that's not. I mean, that's going to be the story all year, if and until you find if NPF comes back and is a more serviceable replacement, or if you have somebody usurp Chris Hubbard's power at right tackle. But for now, it's the best you got. Now let's talk about the pivotal matchups, and I've got 3 written down here that I want to talk about, maybe most in depth. DeAndre Hopkins and Treylon Burks going up against Marshawn Lattimore is a big one. And there's been a lot of talk about, in particular, Marshawn Lattimore and DeAndre Hopkins. They have a bit of a history. They've played each other a number of times. There have been a lot of pictures, I think, from a lot of Saints fans and accounts online this week about this, kind of scuffle, kind of fight that DeAndre and Marshawn got into in the past. And a lot of talk about how Marshawn, he loves playing DeAndre. He owns DeAndre. I went and looked today. DeAndre Hopkins has never not had 100 yards going up against Marshawn Lattimore. So I don't know what that is about. He owns Marshawn Lattimore.
The last 2 times, I think he's had in the realm of 8 receptions for 103 and 110 yards, and the dude is going to be just fine, I think.
I'd imagine, unless he's truly lost a step. But again, I don't know for sure. We don't know for sure this year if the Saints are going to have their cornerbacks travel. I'd imagine he's going to be facing off against Hopkins some, and assuming he's playing, which we are, Treylon Burks some. Now, I think people are maybe over their skis a little bit about, Treylon Burks. He came back. He's healthy. He came back early. He's going to play. I'd pump the brakes. Playing and how much you play are 2 very different things.
Yes.
And so it wouldn't shock me at all if the Titans play him 16 snaps in this game and he gets 4 targets and 2 receptions for 23 yards. Like that would not shock me at all. Not because he's not any good, and that some folks may take it and run like, oh, look at the Titans wide receiver 1, Treylon Burks. He had a they're going to slow play him back. They want him for the duration of the season. And with DeAndre Hopkins to kind of fill that void, I don't expect them to, because again, we saw Treylon at practice the last 2 weeks. JT, I never once, when I was out there, saw him running anywhere really close to full speed. He's just kind of taking it easy. He's easing himself back in. Now, obviously, that's more with an LCL injury, I'd imagine, to avoid re-aggravating it than it is active pain management. I did ask him if it's a pain management thing at this point or if he's re-aggravating it. And he just gave me a, I'm sorry, I can't answer you response. Ask my coach, which is directly from the Mike Vrabel School of Injury Reporting.
Yes.
But I'd imagine at this point, based on what, I'm not seeing him grimace. I'm not seeing him limp around. I don't think it's a pain thing at this point. I think just existing on his knee, walking around, standing around, a light jog, a light cut is not hurting himself. He's just wary of, as you are with most soft tissue injuries or ligament injuries like that, tweaking it, aggravating it, setting yourself back. Going full speed for the first time in the game, and I'm not saying it will be his first time. We don't get to see all of practice. Maybe he's out there every day after warmups. Maybe he just takes warmups slower. Maybe that's the case. We don't know. They don't let us see the full practice. But if he is really going full speed all out for the first time on Sunday, that's kind of concerning. And so I wouldn't hold your breath, Titans fans, to see a huge Treylon game week 1. There'll be plenty more football to play for him. The other side of the ball, receivers for this other side of the ball, and I said we'd come back to him. Michael Thomas versus the Titans secondary is one that I could see being a problem if we get that week 1 Michael Thomas that historically he has been. Obviously, you're gonna have Olave, keeping occupied the Titans' best cornerbacks and demanding the most attention out there. But if Slant God is still Slant God, Slant Boy, I suppose, if he is still this guy that can tear you up piece by piece, kind of slice and dice you the way that he and Drew Brees became famous for doing, that's something that, if they choose, especially to exploit him as a big slot, use him against the Titans safeties in nickel and dime looks, use him against, God forbid, the Titans linebackers that have some things going for them, but team speed is not one of them. I'd be concerned that Michael Thomas may, as the second best receiver on that team right now, in my opinion, in the opinion of most, he may just end up with 120 yards in the game, twice as many receptions, twice as much production as Chris Olave. And it's because, kind of like that Evan Ingram effect last year when the Titans played the Jaguars, you can just exploit the middle of the field against the Titans in the past. Again, I'm rambling here because I'm struggling to give the Titans secondary upgrades this season enough credit, because again, we don't know quite what it's going to look like.
Yeah, and I would say that to that point, like it's not like they won't be coming unprepared, because Sean Murphy Bunting has played against this team.
Plenty of practice.
Like he did last season.
Right.
Kind of understands what he's going to be going up against. So like, I wouldn't say that they're woefully unprepared for what Michael Thomas can do. But then like you said, and they also have been talking about giving Juwan Johnson the ball a lot this offseason. So like, he's also going to be a factor that I think Kevin Byard is going to be playing against him a lot in this game on Sunday. So like, they do have a lot of weapons. So like, I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if Chris Olave has a down game in lieu of like a Michael Thomas or a Rashid Shaheed.
Rashid Shaheed.
One of those guys just going off, and we have another like, what are the Titans doing? Mac Hollins moment this season.
Right. Arando absolutely torches a guy, and we have a new public enemy number one in the Titans secondary, which is just, it's not a matter of if, but when at this point. Let's move on to what matters and what doesn't, JT. And I wanted to talk about this at some length because it's always worth reminding folks week one is a different beast than the rest of the season. And what you can, I think, fairly and unfairly take away from any week one performance, but from the Titans in particular, we'll talk about, is something that bears repeating. The bottom line is that week one is a liar in the NFL. I could sit here for the next hour rattling off the top of my head examples of crazy outcomes from week one that by the end of the season, you look back on it and you're like, oh yeah, that team did beat that team. What was going on? How'd that happen? I mean, the future number one seed in the AFC, Tennessee Titans, for example, just one example, absolutely housed by the Arizona Cardinals that year. The Cardinals were a good team. They ended up falling off by the end of the year and being a wild card and being a one and done in the playoffs. But like, do you think anybody after that Titans game was like, yeah, this team is number one AFC seed potential? Absolutely not. Another example that I think of is a couple years ago when I think the Bills were either the 1 or the 2 seed in the AFC. Remember, they get absolutely trounced by the Steelers at home in a year where they were supposed to be picking it up. Finally, Josh Allen's supremacy shut down. That kind of thing happens. How about the Colts, who were an 8-point favorite over the Texans last year? They go to overtime and tie. Both teams are 0-1 to the hilarity of AFC South fans. Like, weird stuff is going to happen. So when you're doing your
just like
betting,
the Bengals last year, where Joe Burrow starts off slow, there was 5 interceptions, and then they end up going to the AFC Championship again.
Exactly. So when you're doing your betting this week, when you're doing your pick'ems this week, when you're doing your survivor pool this week, when you're sitting down, turning on Red Zone, and just expecting what you think is going to happen, have in the back of your mind the recognition that at least 4 or 5 of these games are going to probably surprise you at the end of the day, and you shouldn't. The key point here is you got to resist taking away much information from week one on a macro large scale for the season, because week one is a liar. It's the ultimate overreaction Monday, the day after week one in the NFL, because so much crazy stuff that we weren't expecting happens. And teams that we thought would be good are bad, and teams that we thought are going to be bad are good. And almost certainly, no. It turns out, get a couple games under the belt. Let everybody get their sea legs. The bad teams are usually bad, and the good teams are usually good. There are some exceptions. The Seahawks last year. Sometimes you are good in week one, and you just are good, and people were downplaying you for no reason. But there are some things on a more individual micro scale that I think are worth talking about, worth looking at for what we can take away from this Titans team in week one. The number one thing for me is an offensive line baseline. Now, again, I don't want to judge this offensive line what it's going to be all year based on week one. I don't think any offensive line should be judged that way. Offensive lines, just in general, typically take a couple weeks to find their zen, to find their rhythm, their connection with one another, and get ahead of steam. The Titans in particular have had offensive lines in the past that are that way. And this particular offensive line in particular is, again, it's 5 new guys based on their position. Aaron Brewer being the only holdover, and he's playing a new position. You got a rookie who's probably your best offensive lineman playing a new position to him. You got a player that was drafted a couple years ago as a first-round tackle that is playing tackle again as a starter for the first time in a while. You've got Andrew Brunskill playing a guard position on a new team. And you've got Chris Hubbard, who's 32 and is playing a tackle position on a new team that he joined 3-4 weeks ago. So there's a ton of room for improvement for this team, however good or bad they look. But I do think a baseline for where they are and what the season is going to look like for them is important. And in particular, what I wanted to mention, JT, is we've been talking about, and I feel like we've been mentioning this not as much as we should. This offensive line, the Titans have very clearly been intentionally building it to be more pass pro focused than their offensive lines in the past. Their MO under Mike Vrabel and John Robinson had been for years, we're going to bring in the best run blockers because that's what we do. We're a ground and pound team. We have Derrick Henry. We have the best running back in the game. We're going to be the best running team that we can possibly be. We'll teach the guys pass protection. Clearly, they weren't very good at teaching pass protection. And I think most people that have worked in football would tell you that it's actually typically easier to improve a guy's run protection or a run blocking rather on the fly to teach that than it is to teach pass protection. And I'm not an offensive line expert, but I feel like pass protection is more just based on innate skills, God-given traits. And like one of those things, you probably have it or you don't. With run blocking, you're trying to move a guy against his will backwards. That's a matter of technique more. And again, maybe I'm speaking out of the side of my mouth, offensive line experts out there rolling their eyes until they can see their brains. But that kind of feels like it's the case. Either way, I know for a fact, run blocking is more easily teachable, according to most experts, than pass blocking is. And because of that, the Titans, I think, have kind of changed their mentality to, we'll bring in the pass protectors. We'll teach them how to run block. We've done run blocking here in Tennessee very well for a long time. We've got a very good running back that can make these guys look good, even if they're not the best run blockers in the world. We'll figure that part out. Let's get the pass protectors in there. Let's protect our 30-plus-year-old quarterback in Ryan Tannehill, who last year we proved we desperately need to stay clean and on the field, or else our team's not going anywhere. And we'll move forward in that way. That's one of those things that has lent itself to people that have been saying this new offense, they're going to be passing more. It's not going to be that same old team that like they're still going to run the ball. Derrick Henry's still going to be an element to this game for this team, but they're going to be passing maybe much closer to 50-50 than in the past, where it's been kind of 65-35, if we're being honest. So that's something that I think is important. What does the pass protection look like as a baseline, since they're supposed to be better pass protectors? And then what does the run blocking look baseline based on the preseason games? And I'm curious what you think. I'm inclined to say we may come away very pleasantly surprised from Sunday's performance on the pass protection front. And run blocking, they may make the Titans running backs look pretty bad.
I mean, that, and also the fact that Derrick Henry just historically starts very slow in the first and second game of the season.
As good as he can make you look in December, he might make you look that bad in September, just because of how slow he sometimes gets up to speed.
And it's just like, I could see that because the Saints, like, to their credit, last year were a top 2 defense in a lot of metrics last year. Like, this is a very good group of guys that they have. So, like, I would not be surprised if we saw that. I also would not be shocked if we just see the same old Titans. Like, this is a very young group, like, gelling-wise. Like,
yes.
They are not really put together yet, and that's only going to come with time of actually playing regular season games.
I agree. One more thing that I want to talk about before we get on to the news and the best bet gauntlet is general tenets of Tim Kelly's new offense. And I'll just fly through a couple of these things. I think there are some general themes to the offense that we will be able to pick up on in week 1. Positionless ball is something we've been hearing all summer long. What does that look like? Do they employ guys like Tyjae Spears and Chigakonkwo in non-traditional situations, in non-traditional alignments, in different positions than their primary role? And how do they do that? How often do they do that? When they do that, is it because they're trying to throw off the defense, or is it because they're trying to get the ball into the hands of that player? Personnel groupings. We know that this team's unofficial depth chart continues to be released in 12 personnel, as it has been for years now. That's not shocking, I think, unless you look at how many tight ends they have on the team, but we've addressed that. Not shocking that this team's going to be more heavy personnel, going to be 12 personnel, mixing in some 11, mixing in some 22, mixing in some 21 on occasion, but primarily one running back on the field with 2 tight ends flanking the offensive line. Is that similar, the percentages, once we get those advanced stats next week, is that going to be similar to what we've seen in the past for the Titans, or are they more heavy one way or the other? Something that we should be paying attention to, and you can probably notice in real time. Maybe there is 11 personnel, kind of harder to come by last year, and some of that was because they didn't have a lot of receivers to put out there.
Yes.
But Do we see more 11 personnel? I think that if this is a team that's going to be passing more, as they've kind of promised or kind of alluded to, we will. And so that's something to look for. Tempo, something they've talked about a lot. These players and coaches all summer have unprompted willingly offered up this idea that this new offense, it's got some pace to it. I'm excited about the tempo we're going to be able to employ in the game. This team, for a couple years in a row now, has been near or at the bottom of the league in pace of play, in average pace of play, in average drive length, in average snap to snap time length. Like all of these timing metrics, they have been slow for years. Do they get closer to average? Do they become dramatically faster? Do they employ actual tempo, as we know it, going tempo in a game, going no huddle in a game more often than just a 2 or a 4 minute drill? Something to pay attention to. Then the last thing, how is the passing game deployed? Right. And this is kind of along those lines of personnel groupings, but is it going to be primarily 2 wide receiver sets, even though they're throwing the ball a lot, which means you get a lot of passing to Tyjae Spears and Derrick Henry out of the backfield. You get a lot of passing to Chigakonkwo out of the tight end position? Or are they going more 11 personnel, more 21 personnel, more 10 personnel on occasion? Maybe. Right now without Kyle Phillips, I'd say that's very unlikely that they do much of that at all. But how is that deployed? Is there more or less play action? Because Tim Kelly comes from an offensive school of thought that is not traditionally play action heavy, which I think has gone under the radar for a lot of Titans fans this year. This is a team that has, and a quarterback for a team that has thrived off of play action for as long as Ryan Tannehill has been here, and really from before that with Marcus Mariota. Do we see less of that? And if so, does that have an active detriment? Is that an active detriment to the team? I know our buddy Zach Lyons over at Stacking the Inbox and a Football Show last year was constantly tracking play action efficiency stats on and off, with play action, without play action for the Titans. And they were consistently much better with play action. So I think that is something that would be maybe concerning if they're not doing much play action, and it's still looking like they're a much better team with the play action installed than without. That's going to be something we're going to have to discuss and bring up and be like, why? What are you doing here? Then the last thing, more early down passing, something the Titans fans have been crying, screaming for, wailing and gnashing of teeth. Please do not run the ball on first, second down every single play, every single drive, every single set of downs. I am begging you. I'm not going to say I'm expecting it, because expectations at the floor, rock bottom. But I'd imagine with more creativity, with more passing options, with a better pass protecting offensive line, with the new offense that's supposed to be more pass heavy, all of these things pointing towards maybe there's some better mix in the drives of plays that are passing and running looks. And that appeases Titans fans in that way. So those are all the things that I think you should look for in this game. They're going to matter. Again, a baseline for the offensive line. How is that passing game deployed in terms of play action, early down passing, personnel groupings, speed and tempo, positionless ball utilization, and that pass protection versus run blocking divide that I think this team may surprise some people with how they are configured. All right, that is enough of Saints-Titans preview. 2 more segments before we get out of here, JT. Let's get to the news with producer JT.
Yeah, we can start off with today, the Titans announcing their captain selections for this season.
It was yesterday, actually, but we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, but we're talking about it today. The guys on the offensive side of the ball who are named captains. No really surprises here, being Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, all pretty chalk there. On the defensive side of the ball, however, Jeffrey Simmons getting the nod, Kevin Byard, and then Azeez Al-Shaair also getting the nod. And then finally, for special teams, Morgan Cox getting that nod as well. Your thoughts?
Not surprising who got elected. Surprising the number of captains, like 7 guys is a lot of dudes. But yeah, nobody here is surprising. I do love that Morgan Cox is the special teams captain. Last year, if you remember, it was Ola Adeni who was gone by like week 7 or something. Was kind of a flash in the pan guy for the Titans. Morgan Cox is not going anywhere. He is your Pro Bowl, all-pro long snapper. So you've got a safe captain at the special teams position. And then maybe the most surprising guy on there, 1 offensive and 1 defensive. Derrick and Ryan, obvious, makes a lot of sense. To have your new center as one of your, a guy that has been on the team for a while in Aaron Brewer, but is it a new position and has not really been much of a leader until this season, in my eyes at least. Kind of surprising that his teammates elected him a captain. And then Aziz Al-Shaair, not surprising knowing the guy, but it is surprising based on the timing. Coming in to Nashville and in one offseason, gaining the respect, the leadership acumen of his teammates to be elected a captain in his first year. Hasn't even played a game as a Titan yet, and he's already a captain in the eyes of his teammates. Pretty impressive, but when you know the guy, not all that shocking.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on here, we can move to the injury report for today, in which it was a little bigger than it was for the first day, but also still
head fake. It was a head fake.
Yes, but also still looking pretty good. Let's talk about the people who were limited at practice today. Trey Avery with a hamstring was limited both yesterday and today. Harold Landry dealing once again with that abdomen injury, limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Dylan Radins with a knee continues to be limited. Those three guys, your thoughts on that?
Only surprising one is well, I say not surprising. Only one that you should keep an eye on rather for this game is Harold Landry. Radins, we're not really expecting. He's already ahead of our timeline, so yes. I think it'd be shocking if he was a full go for this game. Trey Avery, we knew he popped up with an injury of I think it was last week. I forget what day exactly, but recently he popped up with that hamstring. Pretty standard soft tissue injury that's limiting his availability, but wouldn't shock me if he's going to be available as a body, at least as a depth guy on Sunday. Harold Landry, not expecting him on this list for an abdomen. You're expecting him on this list for a knee.
Yes.
His ACL, according to his coaches, again today at practice, they think he is fully and has maybe for a while now been beyond this ACL injury that's not holding him back at all. He just has a separate injury, an ab injury. I don't know if he's got a tummy ache or if he did too many crunches or whatever it is. So that's one that is the biggest impact for the Titans in this game, whether or not he plays, and if so, how much. I don't think we were expecting a ton from him out of the gate anyways because of his knee, but that this may even further limit his snaps in New Orleans.
We move on to the guys who have been full this entire time, both Wednesday and Thursday. Treylon Burks with that knee continues to be a full participant at practice, although we talked about don't be surprised if he still does not go.
He'll play. Just don't be surprised if he doesn't play a lot, I think, as well. I would be surprised, to be clear, if he's not active. I would be surprised by that, but I would not be surprised if he ends up with like 12 snaps.
And then Arden Key with that calf is full on both Wednesday and Thursday, looking more and more like he is good to go. And then Will Levis with a quad coming back from that preseason kind of situation. He is a full participation.
Which is a vague way of put it, kind of situation, but that's about all we know about it. So it truly was a kind of situation, but he's fine now.
And then finally, DeAndre Hopkins and Trayvon Wesco were limited today just for a rest.
I know they gave a lot of people a heart attack when they saw DeAndre Hopkins pop up on the injury report, but yeah, just a rest day for a veteran. They were limited in participation. So nothing really all that noteworthy besides Harold Landry being the biggest note on that Titans list. And they got really accustomed to playing without him and making do last year anyway. So if he can't play in this game, I think they're going to be all right.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about the New Orleans Saints on this side. Nothing too crazy on here.
Just one guy I want to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Traquan Smith, one of their wide receivers, did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Doesn't look like he maybe will be able to go, but we will see tomorrow. Kendre Miller, their running back behind Jamal Williams for this game, did not practice Wednesday and Thursday.
And this is the one, right? Because Jamal Williams, we know last year had his best year as a NFL player, best career season. And he was a touchdown goblin in fantasy. Yes. 17 touchdowns, led the league comfortably. But he's really a between the tackles, bruising back, goal line style runner. He's not really a between the 20s runner. And if he's the only thing you got all day against the Titans defense that, need I remind you, their front last year, pretty good at stopping the run, maybe the best, actually statistically the best. I'd imagine since it's not changed, it's only gotten better. It's just going to be a lot of the same. I went and looked when I realized that it's just going to be him. I went and looked at the line for rushing yards for the Saints in this game, and they've got it at like 49.5, I think, last I checked, 40-50 range. So Vegas doesn't like them to get more than 50 yards in this game. I don't like them to get more than 50 yards in this game. I think that it's going to have to be an aerial attack from Derek Carr because Kendre Miller was going to be your primary between the 20s runner, I think, and Jamal Williams is just going to have to do for them.
Yeah, and then we can move on, I guess, to just some other news and notes here around the season, around the NFL right now. Starting with Brian Burns, who is kind of one of these defensive players who is kind of in a holdout of sorts. except his is a little bit more serious as they go through contract talks. It may look like he's not going to go.
And this is a random one to bring up, but I wanted to bring it up for 1 point and 1 point only. He did it in a weird way, and I love the way he did it. This new, it's not a trend because he's the first one that I'm aware of that's done it, but I think it's going to become a trend of guys doing week 1 holdouts where you come to camp, I'm here and I want to play for this team. I'm excited. And then week 1, I'm not going to practice anymore. I told y'all I need a new contract. I haven't gotten a new contract. Let's get a new contract. That puts the team to the iron, man. That really it is a gutsy way of doing things. It's a more difficult physically way of doing things because you have to be at training camp, obviously. And then it's a very expensive way of doing things because you're potentially missing out on game checks, which is much more expensive than missing out on checks from training camp. So the penalty is higher, but I think it forces your team's hand better. And I'll be not surprised, but interested to see how this pans out for him and for Carolina. I have a feeling they're going to make it happen for him. We saw last year, this is a player that was apparently getting offers for a trade for multiple firsts and multiple second round picks. I don't know if he'd go for that now, but one team in Titans fans won't like this. If he is available for trade, one team that absolutely should be interested is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, adding him to their pass rush would make a big difference for their defense and would change the calculus, I think, for them and for this division. So I don't think that's going to happen. But if I was the Jaguars, I'd be willing to cough up a pretty penny for a Brian Burns to add to my pretty weak defensive front.
I would, and then we can move on here to Nick Bosa,
a guy that got paid.
The guy who did get paid.
And when I say paid, I mean he got paid.
He signed a 5-year, $170 million contract extension. My one question is where did the 49ers just keep getting this money from?
Well, if I need to remind you, they don't have to pay a quarterback anything. So like that's I think people forget.
They also did get Teron Armstead and George Kittle to cough back up some money and restructure their contract to get him
push some money down the road.
But still, it all comes due eventually. So
it does.
But these 49ers for the foreseeable future are pushing for the playoffs. And then finally, like we said, Travis Kelce not going tonight for Thursday.
Everyone knows this at this point. If you're under a rock, he's not playing tonight, so adjust accordingly.
As well with that, Chris Jones also not playing still because, like he said, as soon as I get paid, I will play. But they have not paid him yet.
So. It looks like he's going to be watching the game from a suite in Arrowhead Stadium tonight, and just watching them, I guess, hang the Super Bowl banner. And
that's it.
That's all he's going to be doing tonight. Missing a heart and soul guy on the offense and the defense for your opener against a pretty good Lions team, by my estimation, makes for, I think, an interesting situation. You may see the Chiefs go 0-1 to start the season. We'll see in a matter of minutes at this point, but I think it's going to make for a really exciting game. All right, that is producer JT with the news. And now, before we kick off the NFL season in just about 25 minutes in Arrowhead in Kansas City, we've got to get through our best bet gauntlet. JT, we did this all last year. Had a remarkable winning record on a sample size of over 220 bets. We managed to go 59%, which, ask any professional bettor, that's quit your job territory. We're not going to quit our job because, sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're cold. Maybe if we do it a couple years in a row, maybe then we'll just make this a gambling podcast and quit our jobs and become professional touts. But until then, we're going to continue to try to stay hot, continue to try to make money this season. If you are not familiar with the Best Bet Gauntlet, it is a competition between JT and I. We go back and forth each week drafting 5 teams each, 5 sides each. We're betting sides only, no totals, no parlays, no teasers, no round robins, no props. We're doing just sides in this competition until we get to the playoffs. Then we'll add in some more fun, but sides only to make it as hard as possible, make it as relevant to the people as possible. So in total, we're picking 10 games back and forth and competing head-to-head each week, 5 games each by the end of this season, regular season, that is, whoever has we did the full season, didn't we? No.
Yes.
For the competition?
Yes.
Okay, so just kidding. All season long, we are competing head-to-head in that Best Bet Gauntlet. And some of the rules we need to establish for folks that want to bet along with us, because, again, we made a lot of money last year. You should join us. Join the party. We post these bets on a graphic on our social media accounts at Hot Read Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok on Sunday. So we don't lock these. We're locking them in, but not locking them in until Sunday. The only reason we're going to change what we say today and what we go with on Sunday is if a quarterback could get, some massive injury news happens between now and then, and it changes the math in the game. So typically what we say on Thursday is what we're going with. We are this season adding in a new rule because line movement in finding the best of the line during the week is so important in betting. We're going to be allowed, both of us as a show, to lock in lines from earlier in the week on Tuesday and Wednesday, not before the end of the week. So after Monday Night Football, that's when we can start looking at lines. And if we like a line, you'll have to follow us on social media to get in on the action. We'll throw it out early if we think it's going to be a line that moves. For example, a line that I threw out this week, the Kansas City line. As soon as we heard about Travis Kelce's injury, that line jumped from 6.5 to 5.5, and I expected it to continue to go down. It did. We grabbed it at 5.5, locked it in on Tuesday, I believe. And the show now, whichever of us decides to draft the Chiefs is going to, or the Chiefs or the Lions is going to have that number available to them. So if you want to join us in betting the best of the number, follow us on social media at JT_Ruhnke and at Easton Freeze to get those lines during the week. And then beyond that, I think that's pretty much it. Can't duplicate. Obviously, we've got to have 5 different sides. On occasion, we'll go head to head in the game, and somebody will be wrong and somebody will be right. But without further ado, JT, as the loser of last year's best bet gauntlet, I did in fact beat him. You are afforded the first pick in the best bet gauntlet draft. What would you like to go with, sir?
This one seems pretty easy to me. I'm going to take the best line I think out there right now, in my opinion.
Okay.
Taking the Tennessee Titans +3.
Fitting on a Tennessee Titans show.
As they go down to New Orleans. Look, Mike Vrabel is just insane against the spread. 23-15-1 against the spread as an underdog, which is good for 61%. And then 22-9-1 against the spread as a dog of 3 or more, which is good for 71%. And then as well, 14-6-1 against the spread as a road dog of 3 or more, which is also 71%, covering by almost 5 points a game.
Having a winning record as an underdog just outright is kind of funny in its own right. Like when he's supposed to not win, he wins more than he loses. So that's pretty good for betting, I think. Taking him as a dog, not a bad idea.
And especially with this line basically being a pick-em, just with the +3 for the home field advantage really baked in here. This is really a pick-em, and I'm thinking the Titans are going to win this game, so that's why I'm taking that line.
Yeah, I agree. I do. I want to super nerd bet this because we talked about this, but I hate on shows that talk about betting tangentially how they talk about, 3 is the home field advantage, so really it's a pick-em. It's not, actually. It used to be the case, and that's how books used to estimate it, and the home field advantage has kind of changed in the NFL, but in today's NFL, with our advanced metrics, home field on average is actually about 2.1 points. It varies like 0.3 points up or down, depending on your stadium. The Titans don't have quite the home field advantage the Chiefs or the Seahawks or the Packers do. But they've got a better home field advantage than the Chargers do, for example. So it's about 2.1, but you're right. It is essentially a pick 'em. It's less than a 1-point game when you factor in that 2.1 point home field advantage. My first pick, JT, and folks know we make money on this show by going with the ugly dogs. And we've got a couple ugly dogs in week 1 here. My first pick is going to be one of the ugly dogs, a team that most people are expecting to be one of, if not the worst team in the NFL this season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. They are playing the Minnesota Vikings this week, and they are +6. I'm taking Tampa Bay +6. Some justification for you here, because I know this is a hold your nose moment, and you need the numbers to feel good about this. The number is simply too high. So I don't think that Tampa Bay is a live dog here. I don't expect them to win this game. I do expect them to cover this game, and here's a couple of the reasons why. Brian Flores, the Vikings' new defensive coordinator, historically a heavy blitzer. That's actually not the way to get after Baker Mayfield. He is actually a better statistical quarterback when being blitzed, when more guys are sent after him than when you're getting natural pressure. That's the way to kill Baker Mayfield, is to cover and get after him with natural pressure, sending 4 guys, sending 3 guys. That's when he becomes a worse quarterback. So he's got a better touchdown to interception ratio when he's blitzed. Another reason, Tampa Bay, they still have a great wide receiver duo that as long as Baker can get it in their vicinity, I expect them to catch the ball. And I think that they'll be able to take advantage of I'd say the biggest weakness on this Vikings team, their secondary. That is the glaring hole. I think that there's going to be a mismatch all day long between the Bucs receiving room and the Minnesota secondary. If Baker Mayfield can just not throw the ball to the wrong team, then I think they're going to win in that element. And then Tampa Bay clearly still has the better defense than Minnesota. Their defense is still sneaky good. They've got sneaky great players on that defense. I don't think that Minnesota's going to have a cakewalk offensively in that game. They'll be on the field more, and so maybe they'll be more gassed by the end of the game, but the defense is simply better. By the way, speaking of Kirk, everyone talks about primetime Kirk. He's a disaster. Well, let me tell you another time he's a disaster is when he's favored by 4 or more. When Kirk is a favorite of more than 4 points, he's 11, 18, and 1 all time, 38%. They're at home this week. You'd think that'd be a better split. It's a worse split. He's 31% at home as a favorite of more than 4 points. And a general stat about week one dogs of 6 or more points just in general cover historically at a 60% clip. So give me Tampa Bay +6.
Yeah, and I'm taking another ugly one as well here. I'm going to take Houston +10 against the Ravens.
Biggest number of the week. Love it.
Biggest number
I was going to take this if you didn't take it. Love this bet.
But just like you said, like historically, dogs of 8 or more, especially when you get to double digits, have an insane clip on the week one here. They did this last week as well, or last year on week one as well, as an 8-point dog and took them to overtime. I think it's just because of how people understand this team from last year and not translating it to this season.
Well, because they're not there's no tank potential for this team this year. They are not. They are rebuilding. They've got their guy. They've got their coach. They made 2 first-round picks. They kind of sold out and went in on this year's draft. They're trying to win now. They're in a rebuild, not a tank.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you look at C.J. Stroud in his first game, rookie QBs to start week one are 15-13 against the spread in the last 20 years.
Kind of surprising, by the way.
Surprising, yeah, but like it's a lot of growing pains for both these teams. I feel like getting Lamar back out there, getting him connecting with his wide receivers, new wide receiver Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers,
who's on the injury report, by the way. I don't know if you saw this. He popped up on the injury report today with an ankle.
Mark Andrews as well, maybe being injured. It's just a lot of guys that
new OC, new offense that Lamar's never run. Yes,
exactly. So that's just why I am taking Houston to cover that giant.
He's not a live dog. Again, not a live dog, but to lose by less than 10, I think that's absolutely in play. I love that bet. My next bet, I'm taking the Cleveland Browns in a divisional matchup, another ugly one. Cleveland +2.5 against your Cincinnati Bengals. I think that these guys are a live dog here for a couple of reasons, but I do expect them to at least cover. JT, this is the 3rd straight year where Joe Burrow has missed significant time and reps in the preseason. And for injuries, for COVID, he's just not had a complete offseason to gel with his team. And you could argue because of that, the Bengals have gone 1-3 in their first 2 games the past 2 seasons. Starting slow, you know who they've lost to in that 4-game stretch, the first 2 games of their last 2 seasons? They've lost 3 games in their first 4, or in their first 4 total games. They lost to Mitch Trubisky, Andy Dalton, and Cooper Rush. So it doesn't take a juggernaut to beat this team early as of late. And so you hope and pray it gets to 3. Again, +2.5. I'm taking it at +2.5. I am spending a second mortgage on it if it gets to 3 or 3.5. Wouldn't shock me. I know that the Bengals are a very public side. I think the last I checked on the Action Network app, they are a 71% handle right now. So as the public walks right into this trap of picking Cincinnati in this game to win and cover, I think that number could go up to 3, and you slam that 3. But I'll take them at 2.5. Give me Cleveland +2.5.
Yeah, my next one I'm going to take here. I'm going to take the Giants +3.5 on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys.
Another divisional game, by the way. And just in general, by the way, week 1 divisional dogs hit at a north of 60 clip as well. So
yes,
whenever we mention a divisional dog in week 1, it's usually money. It's usually dollar signs.
And to this credit, Cowboys here, straight up in their last 3 week 1 openers are 0-3 under Mike McCarthy and 1-2 against the spread. They start slow. There's a lot of new pieces on this team. Mike McCarthy's calling plays now. It's not Kellen Moore. I like Brian Dable in this squad here to make some noise and come out swinging. And definitely at plus 3.5, I think this game is closer than that. It ends in a field goal either way. That's why I like the Giants plus 3.5.
I like it. Hey, you got 13 minutes to place my next bet because I'm going with the Motor City Kitties. Give me Detroit plus 5.5. This is one of those lines we locked up earlier in the week. Right now, the live line is at 4. I'd still take it at 4. I don't love it at 4. I'd take it down to 3.5. I think they're going to win, or I think they're going to cover at least a field goal. I think that they are a live dog in this game. Absolutely, the Lions can win this game. But at 5.5, I loved that number. Once we heard I loved it at 6.5, actually. If I could have gotten 6.5, but the Travis Kelce news kept us from getting that. But give me Detroit plus 5.5. It's really, we've mentioned all of it, right? No Travis Kelce in this game. The only is it going to be a massive Kadarius Toney night? Is he going to be healthy for more than 3 snaps? We'll have to see. Is it going to be a Noah Gray night, the tight end that's going to be replacing Kelce? Is it going to be a Sky Moore night? Like, it's a lot of unknown for this team. And yeah, they have the best quarterback we've ever seen play the game wearing their jerseys. So maybe he just makes magic and still torches this team. Would it shock anybody? Not really. That being said, I am going to bet against him being able to be as incredible without his primary target getter and his BFF, Travis Kelce. Chris Jones, that defense, this Lions team, that offense, they love to run the ball. They've got a great offensive line. The Chiefs team without Chris Jones on their defensive line, not a great defensive line. They're run on a bowl. I think that this may be a ground and pound fest for the Lions, rather, and that's kind of all they need. So yeah, all day long, give me Detroit plus 5.5.
My next one here, I'm going to take the Falcons playing the Carolina Panthers.
Dirty Birds.
They're right now minus 3.5.
First favorite we've mentioned so far.
First favorite we've mentioned, which is kind of a switch from last year. I remember I was taking a lot of
week 1. You got to go dogs though.
Favorites.
Week 1, you got to go dogs.
So I've learned a little bit here, but listen, this Carolina Panthers team, especially with this rookie quarterback, the situation they have right now, Adam Thielen might not go. DJ Chark might not go. Their really only viable option might be Miles Sanders this week. And also that offensive line might just counteract how bad Atlanta's run defense has been in the past. I like Bijan Robinson to absolutely tear up this Carolina Panthers team, especially if Brian Burns is not there this week. I think they win by a touchdown this week, especially in Bryce Young's first game. A lot of things can go wrong for this team very quickly. So that's why I'm taking Atlanta with minus 3.5.
I like that bet. My 4th bet, I'm going with Pittsburgh plus 2, another dog. Pittsburgh in week 1 is just always a tasty bet. I feel like they tend to be a dog. They tend to be a lot more buttoned up early, have it together. That Mike Tomlin culture, it makes a lot of sense. They are playing the San Francisco 49ers. They are at home, so they're a home dog in week 1. Very nice cover rate. There's a lot to like about this game. San Francisco getting Nick Bosa back puts a little bit of a wrench in the plan, but I think that Pittsburgh is a live dog to win this game outright. That's why I'm betting them at plus 2. I think that Kenny Pickett is going to make a pretty significant leap from year 1 to year 2. I think their offensive line has gotten better. I think that their passing game is going to be much improved. I think their defense is going to be another top 10 DVOA group, and out of the gate starts strong. I don't see any reason why they won't. I think it's really less my belief in Pittsburgh, although I do believe in Pittsburgh, and more my disbelief in San Francisco. I think Brock Purdy, defensive coordinators have had an entire summer planning on, you think the defensive coordinator in Pittsburgh has not been spending the last 5 months planning every single day on how to ruin Brock Purdy's life as an inexperienced quarterback? I think that he has, and I think that he will, and I think that this first game won't go nearly as smoothly as many are expecting it to for the 49ers. So give me Pittsburgh plus 2.
My final pick here, I am taking the Green Bay Packers at plus 1 in what is almost basically a pick'em game here.
Man. So the Packers still own the city of Chicago, what you're saying.
They might, man. It's just this team obviously has its struggles, right? I think this is a line telling of we don't know what Jordan Love is.
We don't know what this division is, to be fair. I think this division is all a jumbled mess.
We don't know what Justin Fields is. Like, we still don't
Neither
know
guy.
if
No,
he
you're totally
can
right.
pass the ball.
Well, if what we know about him is what he is, that's very concerning, right? We think we don't know because we're expecting him to take a big leap. But if Justin Fields is just running back Justin Fields, then you got a problem on your hands if you're Chicago.
I still really like the Green Bay defense. I like the weapons they have. Obviously, if Christian Watson isn't out there, that's puts a little hindrance in there. But it's going to be a close game, close enough that in this pick,
I think he'll play.
I'm leaning the Packers.
No, I like it. I think that's an outright pick. I think Green Bay winning that game is they're a live dog as well. I'd throw them in a underdog parlay. My final pick of this week's best bet gauntlet. This is the one I have the hardest time stomaching because I believe it. The numbers are sound, but it's concerning to me. My heart says no. My brain says yes. I'm taking the ponies. Give me Indianapolis +5 against Jacksonville. This is just a classic AFC South Week 1 game, right? The team that's supposed to be the worst in the division somehow upsets the team that's supposed to be the division favorite, be the best team in the division. We see it practically every year. Not sure how it happens, but I think this is too big a number. I've been talking about how I have no faith in the spine of this Jacksonville defense. I think that their pass rush is weak. I think their secondary, especially up the middle, up that spine, the linebackers and the safeties, really exploitable. And I think that this Colts team is going to be able to, if Anthony Richardson has any accuracy to him at all, exploit that more as a passer early on. He's not going to torch him, but I think he'll look better than people expect in that first game because that defense is exploitable. And I just don't think that the Jacksonville offense, as high-powered as it could possibly be, it is new. It's going to take some time to gel. It wouldn't shock me at all. And by the way, they can be run on. They were run on all last year, their defensive line. Their defensive line got worse. They're going to be able to be run on. If anything else, Anthony Richardson's going to be able to run the ball against this team. So, yeah, I think the numbers are sound. It's a pros Joe's game. If you look at the betting handle, Indianapolis +5. It's just too many points. So give me Indy +5 against Jacksonville. And that is it for our best bet gauntlet. So to recap, JT taking 4 underdogs and a favorite. Tennessee +3, Houston +10, the Giants +3.5, Green Bay +1, and the lone favorite of the best bet gauntlet this week, Atlanta -3.5. I've got Tampa Bay +6, Cleveland +2.5, Detroit +5.5, Pittsburgh +2, and Indianapolis +5. And that is the first installment of the best bet gauntlet. I think both of you and I would be happy to go 3-2, 2-3, just survive week 1, get to week 2.
Really
just no 1-4s, no 0-5s, and I'll be happy. Week 1 is the hardest to bet. These lines are so sharp. That is our show today. We went long. We started late. It's about to be kickoff, but that's why we built in a cushion. We are 6 minutes clear of the start of the NFL season. So we won't keep you guys much longer. You can tune on over to Amazon, right? We're still on Amazon for Thursday. NBC tonight. Okay, so they pick it up. So NBC tonight, Amazon will get Thursday nights going forward. But the Chiefs and the Lions kicking off here in about 5 minutes. That's going to be it from the Hot Read podcast here live at Boombozz Pizza. Again, we are here live every Thursday night. Come see us, come watch the show, or just come after the show. Come hang and watch Thursday Night Football on all of these fantastic big screen televisions that we're about to enjoy this game on. We'd love for you to come hang out. We'll grab you a drink. We'd love to talk ball with you. Until Monday, when we are recapping all things Titans and Saints in week 1 around the NFL and going through the most fun overreaction Monday of the year. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, for producer JT. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. We'll talk to you next weekend. Enjoy the NFL being back.